Efuru, 1966, by Flora Nwapa holds a distinguished place in African literature as the first novel by a Nigerian woman to be published internationally. Set in a traditional Igbo community in Nigeria, the novel centers on Efuru, an intelligent, independent, and enterprising woman whose life challenges the expectations of a patriarchal society. Through the story of Efuru's marriages, personal choices, and spiritual awakening, Nwapa explores themes of womanhood, marriage, societal norms, motherhood, and spiritual fulfillment. By placing a strong female character at the center of the narrative, Nwapa reclaims the space for African women's voices and experiences, while also highlighting tensions between tradition and modernity. 1. The beginning. Love and defiance. The novel opens with Efuru, a beautiful and respected young woman in her village, making a bold decision. She chooses to marry for love rather than accept an arranged marriage. She elopes with Adizua, a man of modest means who defies tradition by not completing the bride price ritual. This act marks Efuru as a non-conformist, yet her grace, beauty, and generosity help her retain the respect of many in her community. Efuru and Adizua live happily at first, and she uses her intelligence and entrepreneurial spirit to build a successful trade business in fish. She supports their household while Adizua becomes increasingly unreliable. Their joy is further dampened when their only child, a daughter, dies tragically. 2. Betrayal and heartbreak. Efuru's marriage to Adizua crumbles when he mysteriously disappears, abandoning her without explanation. Community rumors suggest that he has taken another wife. Despite the personal humiliation and emotional pain, Efuru maintains her dignity and continues her work as a trader. Her independence and ability to navigate adversity make her a figure of strength. However, her lack of a male child and her inability to conform to idealized womanhood, as defined by society, make her a source of pity and gossip among her peers. 3. A second chance. Gilbert. Efuru eventually finds love again in Gilbert, a man who is more respectful and progressive. They go through the proper marriage rites and their relationship is, for a time, fulfilling. Gilbert appreciates Efuru's intelligence and success, and they seem compatible. Yet, cracks soon emerge. Gilbert begins to resent Efuru's independence and strong opinions. Efuru also faces pressure from Gilbert and his relatives to bear children, especially a male heir. She undergoes a traditional ritual circumcision at Gilbert's insistence, a physically and emotionally traumatic experience, signifying her effort to conform and please her husband. 4. Spiritual awakening. Amid her personal struggles, Efuru begins to experience a spiritual calling. She is chosen by the goddess Uhumiri, the goddess of the lake, known for blessing women with beauty, wealth, and spiritual insight, though not necessarily with children. Efuru's connection with Uhumiri is both empowering and isolating. It sets her apart from other women, emphasizing her destiny as a woman of inner strength and purpose. Her association with Uhumiri becomes a symbolic acceptance of her identity beyond the societal expectations of marriage and motherhood. It marks a turning point where Efuru shifts from seeking validation in relationships to embracing a deeper spiritual and personal identity. 5. The ending. Loss and liberation. Efuru's second marriage, like the first, ends in disappointment. Gilbert grows distant and unfaithful. Efuru ultimately chooses solitude and spiritual fulfillment over continued suffering in an unbalanced relationship. She continues her work and devotion to Uhumiri, representing a final act of liberation. Though her life is filled with personal losses, broken marriages, childlessness, societal misunderstanding, Efuru emerges as a fully self-possessed individual, respected for her resilience, wisdom, and integrity. Analysis. 1. Efuru as a feminist icon. Efuru is portrayed as a woman who consistently defies societal expectations. She chooses her own partners, supports herself financially, and speaks her mind. At a time when women in her community are largely defined by their husbands and children, Efuru's self-reliance and intellect mark her as exceptional. While she is not overtly radical or rebellious, her quiet insistence on living life on her own terms makes her a proto-feminist figure. Flora Nwapa uses Efuru's character to challenge patriarchal structures and present an alternative model of African womanhood, one that values independence, self-worth, and spiritual identity. 2. Thematic exploration of marriage. Marriage is a central theme in Efuru, serving as both a source of hope and disillusionment. Efuru's 2 marriages, first to Adizua and then to Gilbert, both end in betrayal. Through these experiences, Nwapa critiques the fragility of romantic love and the imbalanced expectations placed on women in marital relationships. Efuru is expected to be loyal, nurturing, sexually available, and fertile, yet her male partners fail to offer emotional support or fidelity. The patriarchal double standards are stark. Men can abandon responsibilities, but women must endure in silence. Efuru ultimately rejects this paradigm, finding meaning outside of marital status. 3. Motherhood and its cultural weight. Motherhood is a deeply ingrained value in Efuru's society. A woman's worth is often judged by her ability to bear and raise children, especially sons. Efuru's loss of her only child and subsequent infertility place her at odds with cultural norms. She becomes a subject of gossip and pity, despite her many other qualities. Nwapa uses this to critique the limiting definitions of womanhood that reduce women to their reproductive roles. Efuru's journey reveals that fulfillment can come from other forms of legacy, economic contribution, moral strength, and spiritual enlightenment. 4. Spiritual identity and the goddess Uhimiri. The introduction of the goddess Uhimiri adds a mythic and symbolic dimension to the novel. Uhimiri is both revered and feared. She is powerful, independent, and associated with wealth, but also with childlessness and loneliness. Efuru's spiritual calling reflects her growing recognition that her path may diverge from societal norms. By aligning Efuru with Uhimiri, Nwapa elevates her protagonist to a symbol of female mystique and empowerment. Efuru's spiritual awakening provides an alternative form of purpose and fulfillment, independent of social approval. 5. Community and gossip as social control. The community in Efuru plays a significant role in enforcing societal norms. Gossip, judgment, and collective opinion function as tools of control, especially for women. Efuru's choices, marrying for love, remarrying, and remaining childless, are all heavily scrutinized by her peers. Nwapa uses this to explore how women themselves, not just men, internalize and perpetuate patriarchal values. Characters like Ajanupu, her neighbor, express empathy and provide solidarity, but others shame Efuru for failing to meet expectations. The novel thus presents a nuanced view of communal life, both supportive and stifling. 6. Language and oral tradition. Nwapa incorporates elements of Igbo oral storytelling, proverbs, songs, and local customs throughout the novel. This indigenizes the narrative form, allowing African worldviews and female experiences to take center stage. It also connects the reader with the spiritual and cultural fabric of the society being portrayed. While written in English, the novel's rhythm and imagery are deeply rooted in Igbo sensibilities. This allows Nwapa to reclaim narrative authority and center African women's voices in a literary space often dominated by male and Western perspectives. Conclusion. Efuru is a landmark novel in African literature and a profound exploration of a woman's journey to selfhood in a society defined by rigid gender expectations. Through the trials and triumphs of its central character, Flora Nwapa offers a critique of patriarchal traditions while celebrating the resilience and spiritual depth of African women. Efuru's story is one of quiet resistance, inner strength, and moral clarity. Though she experiences abandonment, grief, and exclusion, she emerges as a spiritually fulfilled and socially respected figure. Her decision to choose self-knowledge over societal approval marks her as a pioneering literary figure, complex, dignified, and enduring. By blending indigenous storytelling with a feminist sensibility, Nwapa not only challenges cultural stereotypes but also lays the foundation for African women's literature. Efuru remains a timeless narrative about autonomy, identity, and the diverse ways women define the meaning of a fulfilled life.